Right, this is me part 3 of this review of the December 22nd, 2023 edition of New Scientist magazines, and this is concentrating more on the main articles. Long COVID, 4 years on. With millions of people affected by lingering symptoms after COVID-19 infection, have we finally got a handle on this complex post-viral condition and how to treat it, asked Michael Marshall. For many of us, the COVID-19 pandemic is fading into memory, but for millions of people that isn't possible, as they are still unwell. An illness that is often brief and mild is for some the start of a roller coaster of symptoms that can last years. Today, around 65 million people may have long COVID. Well, that was towards the end of 2023, but it is possible that people who have had long COVID could still be affected by it now. The incidence of long COVID is predicted to reach that of heart disease, reducing the risk. Vaccination is a key factor in cutting the chances of getting long COVID, as is resting as much as possible in the first 2 weeks of the initial infection, but most crucial is preventing infection in the first place, and several things can help with this. Improved ventilation and purification reduce the number of pathogens around. When we do become sick, wearing face masks and staying at home can reduce the risk of passing on the disease. You don't see anybody wearing face masks now. The hidden cost of everything, the cost of the goods and services we buy, doesn't reflect the environmental and social damage they cause. That may soon change, discovers Graham Norton. There's some interesting things in this magazine, if anybody who's interested in purchasing a copy of it online. This is a cover story here that the wonder particle. Could a resurgent hypothetical particle called the Axion solve all of the biggest mysteries of the universe? Jonathan O'Callaghan investigates. In 1977, physicist Frank Wilczek took a walk that will change the course of particle physics forever. On that walk, I had the germs of 2 really good ideas, he recalls. The first was how a theoretical particle, later dubbed the Higgs boson, might interact with other particles. This would be how the Higgs was found decades later. The second idea, however, has taken a little longer to catch on. Wilczek had imagined a way that very light, essentially massless particles could be made. He talked to his colleague, the late Steven Weinberg, who had been thinking along the same lines. Together they predicted a class of particles we now call axions. Weinberg was optimistic, convincing Wilczek, now at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the axions would be easy to find, but nearly half a century later, we are still looking in the intervening years interesting axions, largely filled because they could be the hard-to-find dark matter that makes up 85% of the matter in the universe, dwindled in favour of other explanations. Today, amid our failure to track down dark matter and a slew of theoretical and experimental breakthroughs, axions are resurgent. They're very much back in fashion, says Wilczek. Read a bit more. A few years before his fateful walk, Wilczek was at the supermarket with his mother when he spotted a detergent called Axion. He liked the name. When this opportunity arose for a new particle that cleaned up a problem, the stars were aligned, he says. Weinberg had been calling it a Higlet, but he agreed that Axion was a better name. Axions, as they exist, would abide by the strange rules of quantum mechanics, meaning they could act as both waves and particles. As particles, they would have an exceptionally low mass, ranging from hundreds to billions of times smaller than the lightest particles we know of today. Because they would be so light, their wavelength could be as long as the width of a galaxy. Now, let's have a look at the contents. The contents here this week. Page 10, why clocks can never be completely accurate. That seems like an interesting thing to study, doesn't it? Physicists find ultimate limit for how accurate clocks can be. Alex Wilkins. The more precisely we measure time, the harder it is to get the time right. So a clock needs a system that can tick, but it also requires another system to count this ticking. What's this? Technology. Robots with spongy paws could navigate uneven terrain. Giving robots squidgy paws that contain cameras could help them negotiate their steps better. T.J. Barnwell at the Indian Institute of Technology, Bombay, Jorgen Anker Olsen at the Norwegian Institute of Science and Technology, and their colleagues have developed what they call a terrain recognition and contact force estimation paw, trace paw. It's like I said, I don't want to divulge the contents of this magazine in too much. Saviour or sinner. Carbon dioxide removal tech, once seen as an impractical and unhelpful distraction amid efforts to cut emissions, now has big money backing it. Will it pay off? Asked James Dineen. What do Microsoft, IKEA and Shopify have in common? All have promised to become carbon negative companies aiming to not only cut their emissions but go beyond that to remove carbon dioxide from the air, with such pledges becoming increasingly popular as boardrooms flex their green credentials. The carbon dioxide removal CDR industry is seeing an investment boom. A direct air capture plant generated by Heirloom in California. You've seen you've seen a fair amount of the you know a fair amount of the content of this magazine, so there's no point in the reason why I do reviews of things is just to whet your appetite, that's all. There's the letters page there.